Hi, welcome to Booking Through Life. I'm Mary, and today we're going to chat about the book In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park with the help of the assistance of Marianne Vollers. And it's the truest story of a North Korean girl's journey to freedom. And I gave this a 5-star. It's an excellent, excellent book. I talked a little bit about it in a video that's probably going to come out after this. I was about, I can't remember if I was a third or 2/3 of the way through. But the book is written in 3 parts. The first part details her growing up in North Korea. The second part details when they were able to get to across the river and get to China, and how they didn't know that they were going to be sex trafficked, she and her mother. And then her grueling account, 2-year account in China, and then how she was able to escape to Mongolia in order to get to South Korea. And it is heartbreaking. At places, it's really gut-wrenching and hard to read. It's just, we know these things happen, especially in a place like North Korea, but it just, it defies imagination in some ways. But it's also very hopeful, especially as you get to the end. But she's a pretty, in the midst of everything, she's always been like her father, kind of an optimistic, upbeat person, even though she carries around a lot of wounds in her heart and in her body. The dedication, I love the dedication. It says, "For my family and for anyone, anywhere struggling for freedom." And then she has a quote by Joan Didion that says, "We tell ourselves stories in order to live." And she talks about, towards the end of the book, how important it was for her to tell her whole story. She spent many years not telling about the 2 years in China being sex trafficked, because she thought that was going to mark her and brand her, and she'd never be able to overcome the social stigmas that go with being in the sex trade. And so but she finally realized that she needed to release that and tell her story. And I, in my own life, I don't know about you, if you've gone through anything. I haven't gone through anything as tragic as this. Usually the things I go through are things that I bring upon myself. But I know for my own self that telling my story, when you have your story and it's kind of a secret, it feels so big, it almost can feel very unmanageable. But once you release it and let it out, it starts to shrink in your head and in your life and becomes more of a manageable thing that you can work through and grow from. And you definitely will experience that as you read this book. Yeah, a couple of just thoughts was that, and I think she says this too, but you really get the sense that living in North Korea, especially for the there's 3 classes in North Korea, but especially for the 2 lower classes, being in North Korea is almost like being in a prison camp. And when she traveled to America and saw homeless shelters, she felt like they were luxury, that homeless shelters had a lot of luxuries that you didn't have even as a free citizen in North Korea, and all the indoctrination regarding the rulership there. And she says how the word love was only used in context with the Kim Jongs. That was really sad and really interesting. And then when she's in China, that portion is just grueling. And really, the title "In Order to Live" is quick, or is sure to point out that all these things she was forced to do really in order to live, and that the human spirit is able to triumph over those adversities, especially when you are able to find freedom. Although even once she found freedom, when she gets to South Korea, she discovers that freedom doesn't come just easily. Again, going back to that prison camp analogy, I think just like we hear from prisoners that you're used to, in prison, you're used to having a very limited amount of choices. You're used to having someone tell you what to do. So then once you get out of prison, freedom and going to the store and having all these choices can be overwhelming. And she did feel a lot of that as well. I don't want to give it all away, but I just want to say that for me, giving a 5-star just means that it's above and beyond a good book. It's a fabulous, wonderful book, and I do give this book a 5-star. This was written, I believe, in 2015. I've heard that she has another book coming out soon, and she also has done some TED Talks, so you can find her on TED Talk. And I haven't checked those out yet, but that's next on my list. I just wanted to get this review done because I checked this out at the library, and there are a few people who are waiting for it after me. And I'm glad that I finished it a little bit early so the next person can get it and read it as well. I will also say there's some pictures. This is her father and her mother, and here's her mother and her sister and Yeonmi after they've been free. There's also 2 other things just to note and to make sure you look at as you're reading, and you're finding out her journey from her town and swimming across the river, and then going to the town in China, Chiangbai, I think that's where she stayed. And then once she's finally trying to leave China, she ends up in one little town and has to take a very long road trip down here, which is interesting because it's across the sea from South Korea, but yet then she has to do a trip to Mongolia, which is 4 days in the desert. So if you look at the map while she's doing that, that's at the end of part 2. You'll really get a better understanding of really how treacherous her travel was, and how, I mean, sometimes you can read 4 days, but you're not really thinking, oh my gosh, she traveled a long way. And then the other thing I highly recommend is at the end, read her acknowledgments, especially the last probably 5 or 6. I cried. Of course, I cried a couple of times in this book, but I shed some tears over this too because it just was really touching. So I highly recommend you finish the book. You start it at the first page and you read all the way through. Wherever there's text, please read it. Anyway, again, I highly recommend this book. I heard it's good on audio too because I think it's probably Yeonmi Park that's reading it and getting her Korean accent kind of helps give you context too. Just get her voice. Anyway, before this gets too long, I'm going to wrap up. 5-star. Thanks to the Fall Into Reading Challenge, Kelly at Cozy Book Kelly, Rainey at RaineyDayReads, and there's oh gosh, I'm doing a blank. And I even talked with her on Instagram a little bit. She's Literary Reads, I think, and I can't think of what her first name is. And then there's someone else. So I'll put them in my description. I might put them up here, but if I don't, that's just because I wanted to get this out before Thanksgiving. Anyway, if you're from America, happy Thanksgiving. If you're anywhere else in the world, happy weekend or whatever else you're celebrating. I hope you are looking forward as we kind of launch into the Christmas season. I hope all your days are merry and bright, or the holiday season if you don't celebrate Christmas. And again, thank you for joining me. I hope every book is a good book. Let me know in the comment section if you've read this book. Please feel free to like and subscribe. I'm trucking along on subscriptions, so that's really fun. And I've enjoyed interacting with all of you. I have a couple more videos coming up soon. See you later. Bye.